It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. It is another Articles of News episode. Will we do more news? Yes. Before the end of the year? Yes. Will we do some sort of recapping of 2024? Probably, unless we don't, in which case look forward to it in 2025, or maybe we won't. I'm joined by TW, old one chain himself, Taylor Westbrook, representing not only the single folk, but the rising generation. Thank you for being here, sir.
Absolutely. It's great. It's been a minute.
Yeah,
But you forgot about me.
no. We connected, but I was reminded the other day when someone emailed in. I'll share the email at a different time on a different episode, where the person said, lot of old people, lot of old people. Can we get someone younger? And I was like, yeah, yes. And this is also a good time to call out. This is not for Taylor. This is for the Cultural Hall's purposes. But if you are a young single person within the church, active, and would like to be a co-host of some articles of news, that is a perspective that we are missing. Young, defined however you would like it to be. I know we're all young at heart, probably like younger than Gen X, probably is what we're looking for. So it could be millennial, could be Gen Z. Heck, I'd go what's after Gen Z? The
Gen Alpha.
Yeah, Gen Alpha. I'd have a Gen Alpha that could carry their weight. Just no more old people is what this guy particularly wanted. What's new with you? It's been a couple months, like you said. So what? Nothing? All the same?
No, a whole lot has changed. I'm trying to remember what had changed since the last time I was on here, but in the last few months, I quit my job.
Yeah, you did. I think that's about where we were.
Okay.
You were either
About
about to, or you were like, real sucks real bad. If anyone has a job, I'd really like that other.
No, it didn't suck that bad, but yeah, quit my job. I just moved, so I live right now just outside of downtown. But I'll only be living here for about a month and 3 days.
Okay.
Then I was talking to Richie about it. I'm headed off to Peru, which is
Yeah,
exciting.
sure. Yeah, you just go. I mean, like you do. You get a
Exactly, as one does.
Yeah, you get a month and 3 day sublet, and then it's like, well, I mean, I guess I could move to South Salt Lake, or I could move to Peru. I
Yeah,
guess I'll go to Peru instead.
it's awesome.
Tell me about that move.
Well, I served my mission there.
Okay.
So like most return missionaries, it's a place that, you have a space for in your heart, and it's just an awesome place.
Sure.
Lots of excursions to do, lots to see, which some of which I got to do on my mission. So I was in the Cusco, Peru mission where Machu Picchu is,
Sure.
the Sacred Valley, all of these awesome ancient villages and things like that. So we got to see some of those, but I kind of want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into it. So I don't have an apartment after January 31st. I'm
Mhm.
throwing all my stuff into storage,
There you
and
go.
then I'm heading there for about 2 months right now is the plan. I bought my
Did,
return flight for April, so
did you hit somebody up that you taught and were like, "Hey, listen, you always said I could have a room in the back, and now I'm coming," or how did that? What are you doing? Where are you staying?
that's a good question. Haven't quite figured that part out yet. There's lots of people I know there. I'll probably be kind of bouncing around to different cities. And also once getting there is the expensive part.
Sure.
Uh, Once you're there, I mean, cost of living is much, much cheaper than here. So yeah, the dollar stretches quite a ways there. So found an Airbnb that's like $400 for a whole month.
Oh my gosh, for
That's
real?
doable. I can do that.
Yeah, geez, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, I'm excited. Very, very
And
excited.
you don't have the language barrier. If I went to Peru, I'd be like, I got to bring someone with me. Are you going solo, or are you bringing someone with you? Group
I'm
of.
going solo. The invitation's out there if anyone wants to, I'll be there for 2 months.
Uh-huh.
Some of my family might come down for like a week. Some mission buddies might as well. But, Richie, if anyone out there,
Yeah.
anyone listening to the Culture Hall, if you're like, hey, I'd love to go to Peru and have a guide there, not that I know it too well, but give me a month there,
Uh-huh.
then come join me, and then I'll be like an expert,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. Interesting. So I did this. How long have you been home?
7 years?
Okay. So I did this about 2 years after I got home from my mission, and I was in an institute class, and I got up. I think I was the class president or something stupid, and I was like, "Hey, if anyone wants to go to Cleveland with me, I'm going back to Cleveland." And there was this girl that I had been flirting with that sat in front of me, And when I sat back down, because I sort of made the same blanket kind of invitation, knowing no one would ever take me up on it, right? She, when I sat down, she had written a check that said, "Hey, put in the amount that is for the plane ticket. I'd love to go to Cleveland with you." And so we went, and it was incredible. It was the most incredible starting of a relationship because I didn't know her, but we dated, and she was great.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
really cool. How
yeah.
long did you guys date after that?
Well, we dated about until I told her that I loved her, and she said she wanted to date other people in the same breath. Not a joke. I can tell you, I can show you the exact parking spot where we were, where I was like, listen, I need to tell her that I love her. I feel it. It's time. It's all these things. I love you. We need to date other people. And I was crushed. Crushed.
Have you avoided that parking lot ever since?
No, no, no. I'm there very, very frequently. It's the Desert Star. It's the back parking lot of the Desert Star. It's right underneath the street light. And every time after a rehearsal or a performance, I walk by, and sometimes it's a lingering thing, and other
Mhm.
times it's just quick and passive. I go, that was my first, like, I love you and first heartbreak right here in this parking spot. The
Probably
worst.
helps you get in the zone, into your groove for a show, right?
Sure. Yeah. Comedies. The way that
Oh,
you can get into a
that's true.
comedy is just destroy your self confidence and worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way to do. It's the way to do. That's awesome, though. I can't go like this February, March, but if you ever do it again, my wife went to Peru, not on a mission. Well, I guess she would call it maybe like a humanitarian thing. Unreal. She says it was the best time of her entire life.
It's amazing
Yeah.
for sure. So maybe the next time I'm on here, being that I'm on here every couple months at
Yeah.
this rate, but maybe the next episode I'll be coming to you live from Peru. We'll
Let's
see.
do it. I in fact insist on it. Let's do it.
Okay, perfect.
Now, let me ask you this about that. Let's pry a little bit. Let's get a little vulnerable. It's just me and you and, thousands of people that listen to this.
Right.
Are we a little lost? Is that why we're doing it? Because that's why I went back to Cleveland 1,000%.
Look, I might be.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, the last year and a half's been interesting. Becoming a young single adult again and
Mhm.
getting back into dating. And then, I had a job that I thought was a career until realized it
Wasn't.
wasn't. So
Yeah,
Peru still to this day represents some of the biggest spiritual changes that I had in my entire life. And so, not that the place itself holds any special power to do so, but um, I'm hoping to kind of experience the same thing in a different way,
sure,
maybe. Or
sure.
maybe it's just a long, really cool trip. Who knows?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
either way, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's funny how like when you have those things where you're like, what am I doing? And then you go, when was the last time I felt something, right? When was the last time I felt physically good? When was the last time or whatever? And then you just sort of go, yeah, okay, I'm going to do that because that felt good. And it will be some elements of that. And then there will be some things where you're like, this is not the same. I'm not, serving the Lord with a badge and people have to let me in or they hate my guts like they did before. But I think that's huge. That's a big deal. That was life changing for me.
Mhm.
It was clown college for me. That's not a joke. But that was the literal life change for me where I went to clown college and went, oh, okay, here we go.
Mhm.
Change.
Now, should we get ahead of the emails or comments about and just acknowledge my privilege to be able to go quit my job and go to a different country for a couple months?
Listen, come on. You probably Bitcoined or something and you were like, listen, let's go. Cash that
No,
in while it's hot.
I got into crypto way late and didn't do well and didn't put in much.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Yeah, of course. Privilege, sure, of course. Right. And
yeah,
people that hate, you know what it is? It's those people. It's those people. It's their issues, not yours. You get to
fair enough.
lead your life however you need.
And I invited all of you, so
Yeah,
you can't say
yes,
you weren't included.
yes, yes. I'm trying to think if there is something interesting that I would tell you. Uh,
Well,
uh,
you were just traveling, right? Recently.
yeah. So we did this big road trip where we were just like we are gonna go on a vacation. We didn't go 2 months like old one chain. We were only able to go like 2.5 weeks, but it was incredible to just be like, let's go. I've never taken a vacation that long before. And it was incredible. We've looked back at the photos of that and just been like, How great was it? Again, privileged. Part of it for me is my work is so seasonal that it wasn't really a privilege. It was there ain't nothing going on, so you might as well go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But being able to just go and see a different part of the country and go, oh yeah, you know what? Today I get to do whatever I want. And it was interesting to see what sometimes those things that I wanted to do were and weren't, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited. I hope you take a bunch of pictures.
Oh, you know me. You see my Instagram story. I'm all about taking pictures.
Yeah. And it seems like you
Everywhere I go.
adventure just tons around here. So I'm excited to do that. And, you know, maybe there'll be that person that 7 years ago you were like, hey, she's moderately attractive. And then you are this guy that comes from Utah. And there it is. Boom. The beginning of something very, very beautiful. If you want that, I'm not forcing that on you.
Not what I'm planning for when I go there now.
But Peruvian, this is now two dudes. Sorry, ladies, about this part of the conversation. Peruvian women, pretty beautiful, right? Because it kind of like Brazilian and Argentinian women, like
I'd say so, yeah.
typically, yeah. Wouldn't you could do worse? You could do worse.
Fair.
Yeah. Contact at theculturalhall.com is where you can always send an email if you were just misogynistic and sexist, horrible, privileged people. You can send it there. I would also encourage everyone, we're looking at 2025. I'm going to point to the outfield and let you guys know that by the end of 2025, we will have published our numbered 1000th episode. This one is in the late 870s. So we're going to do a lot in the year 2025. And I also want to point out that there are, when we started in 2011, April of 2011, there were not very many properties that were doing what we do. I still maintain there aren't any that do it the way that we do it, both as good or as regularly and, all that kind of stuff. But I would to point out that there are other properties that do this where the host or co-hosts, it's their job. They're able to have it be their full-time job, or they're able to be connected to a foundation where this and maybe some other, content is what they do for a living. That is not the case with any of us. And so when you consider Patreon, or you consider just being like, hey, you know what? My Bitcoin did do well this year. I would encourage you to think about doing something like that for the Cultural Hall, because it does matter. We don't have that luxury of being able to do that. And knowing that we've been here since April of 2011 and will continue to be here, I would hope that you would think, hey, you know what? It's about time that I do. You can reach out, contact theculturalhall.com if you want to do just like a one-time thing. There, of course, is the Patreon thing. I'm not going to turn down your money, and it matters. If for no other reason, it lets me know that you liked it. So please contact at theculturalhall.com or whatever way you want to do it. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Taylor has gone through, that is old One Chain himself, has gone through the news and said, these are the stories I would like to talk about. We may not do the exact order that he said, but we'll get to those stories coming back when we do actual articles of news. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the Cultural Hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com.
Imagine running a small business today. It's challenging. Imaging and internet presence is an absolute must. Even with that, you're still a small star in a bright cyber universe. Now, imagine you have someone who understands how to get your site designed for your talents and then easily searched by potential clients. Imagine Lennon Design. Whether it's strictly a website or a whole package of logo creation, advertising media, and promotional materials, Lennon Design is your partner in business. They'll test the boundaries of their imagination to create something unique for you. When you need creative, affordable design, let it be Lennon Design. Call 801-699-3022 or visit LennonDesign.com.
Here in the second half of Articles of News, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter Breinholt.
You can't lose Articles of News.
And away we go. Fun fact, Peter Breinholt living in England right now. I think his wife is getting her doctorate or something. I need to pay more attention. They came back and did shows over the holiday season, but I think they're back in England now. Why am I telling you about that? When I say hit it, Peter, that little jingle plus the jingle that you hear at the end of every episode comes from a very, very early episode in 2011 when Peter Breinholt brought his guitar into the studio and played us a song, which is incredible. You can find that on YouTube. And he also did the jingles that you hear. He also, when we do interview episodes, the little strumming that comes underneath the front when we do a little teaser of the episode, that is him. He's never been paid $1. He just loves the Cultural Hall, and I love him. So come back from England again, Peter. The first story, let's do it.
All right. The first story is a very interesting one. As soon as I read this, I was like, we have to talk about this. A man in Orem, a man named Alexander Cedillo Herrera, is accused of stealing several credit cards from the Orem Temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I immediately am like, how did he do that? My first thought was he maybe the one working the counter, where if you need to rent temple clothing, but it sounds more like he gained access to the lockers, stole credit cards from there, and there were at least 3 victims where he then went out trying to rack up a bunch of fraudulent charges, had some trouble doing it. The first charge he tried to do, I can't remember how much it was, but it was an exorbitant amount that got declined. So then he started splitting it up, going to different stores, Walmart, Target. I think the largest charge was $1,200 just on one card from one of the victims. But a very interesting story.
So the thing that is interesting to me about this, as you indicate, he's getting them from the lockers. This isn't like he's taken a picture of the cards when you're checking out your clothes, although I think it would still apply. This is a guy who, for all intents and purposes, temple worthy.
Yeah.
And so it's or air quotes temple worthy. He's like, hey, I know what I'll do. Yes, yes, no, 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 yes, yes. Give me the piece of paper. Boop. Yep, here we go. And then, all right, I know the 7 o'clock endowment session is in. I used to have an hour and a half. Now I've only got an hour. I got to get this lickety split, trying to get in the locker. What in the world?
Now, it could be, he's stealing credit cards. He could have stolen or found a temple recommend. Who knows? I wanted to look into this guy, see if I could find him on any socials, but I forgot to do that. But most likely, yeah, temple worthy, and then just at some point had the idea to start getting into the lockers.
There's a couple things that are really wrong with it for me. One, we sort of have this, and I know that this is incorrect, but we sort of have this this love of discernment. Like, why is the person at the front not able to be like, something's off here, or, something like that, right? If he did, in fact, steal the temple recommend, like, why is there not something like that? And, or this person would have to be very familiar otherwise, because when I hadn't been to the temple in 10 years and I just was going back, but I had been there, I'm like, has it left? Where do we, is it, where? And finally, hallelujah, this guy puts his arm around me. He's like, been a while. And I was like, yeah. So I feel like it has to be a little bit more like diabolical, a little bit more contrived, that this guy was like, yep, I can't think of a better way to steal a credit card. Salvation for you, but domination and financial ruin for,
Yeah, it's crazy. He told police that he found the credit cards.
Sure.
But I think it was pretty easy to deduce that all the victims were all in the same place at the same time when their cards went missing and the charges started racking up. Interestingly enough, he's also being investigated by BYU police for similar crimes. So fraudulent use of financial cards. There wasn't a whole lot of information as far as that and why it was BYU police that were
Yeah.
investigating him.
So it could be a BYU student. How old is this guy?
Ooh, good question.
I mean, in the thing that I saw, he looked fairly young, or could be a non-traditional BYU student, or maybe it was on campus. But that again, that seems so targeted towards LDS people, or that he would be LDS, that I just
That's true.
the mental gymnastics of like, hey, I'm worthy. I'm gonna go ahead and steal that card. Good for that guy. Split that hair. Not actually good for that guy. Don't steal other people's crap.
Crazy, crazy.
And then this, I'll take this next story. This,
Go for it.
you can find a video, a link to all of these in the show notes. I am not by no means giving these elders a pass, but I am to say, think about your life. And if someone had a camera on your life all of the time, undoubtedly you'd say something moronic. I'm not giving these guys a pass at all. I think that they hopefully are learning the lesson that you don't mock people, especially. So let me get into the story. It's Topeka, Kansas. It's two missionaries, Ring camera. They're at a Chinese American's home and they're, mocking Chinese people. Ring camera captures it. And, it's being shared and people are like, oh, they're horrible. How can these be the servants of, of Jesus and all these things? And I think, okay. And they're also 19, 20 years old. I'm not giving them a pass, but you have to think we are in the year almost 2025. It can't say crap on people's porches ever. I mean, you shouldn't say it at all, but anytime you're anywhere, especially with the name badge on, that is a target for people to go, what are you saying? What are you doing? It's like being a policeman. It's like being other things. You have extra attention on you and you just can't. You shouldn't anyway, but you just can't say things on people's porches.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure these missionaries were just horrified, one, to find out they were being recorded.
Yes.
That this person who they likely did not know that she was Chinese American.
Yep.
It just you couldn't script it any more detailed, just how horrible it was. And I'm sure that there's some repercussions for them from their mission president and maybe some sensitivity trainings going on in the mission. Now, when I went and watched the video, I was a little bit like, okay, I was expecting like them to say something real bad.
Yeah, don't give me an example. I know where you're going.
Yeah. Let me give you all the examples of the no.
I could have said, yeah,
no. But I was like, okay, that wasn't as as bad as I thought it was going to be, I guess.
Sure.
But she was rightfully offended. She said, if you're trying to bring your religion or your faith to people, that's the last thing you should probably do is say something racist. The appropriate way to deal with it isn't just to send some little "I'm sorry" in response to the missionaries sent her a message with an apology, but you really need to be loud about how you're going to fix it. Now, that part, I mean, I don't know if she means that the church should release a statement about how they're going to fix it, or maybe the mission president contact her or something like that. But yeah, I'm sure those missionaries were definitely horrified once they found out they were on camera.
Well, and they sent the apology. They said, hey, Jennifer, these are the missionaries that were on your doorstep. We apologize for our actions and our words. We know that what we said is wrong and that there may not be anything that we can do to make it up to you. Again, we are so sorry. We want to know if there's anything that we can do. I mean, kudos to the apology, and that they didn't apologize in that classic 19-year-old way where it's like, we're sorry that you got offended, which where you're just taking the gas and pouring it on the thing.
Yeah, we're sorry you heard us.
Yeah. Apologized. We are sorry. We know that it is wrong. I think to say that's not enough. Okay. But I think on the other side of that too, I think that it's like, yes, thank you for saying sorry. And Topeka mission president, what are you going to do? Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, what are you going to do? I think that there is a valuable step forward, and you can bet that mission president and every mission president has said, hey, zone conference, guys, here's the thing. There's cameras. Shut up. And I'm not even like the things, anything like that, but I can remember like, hey, try and work the word but into your conversation, and be like, oh yeah, well, Nephi, but, and then you look at the companion, you're like, I totally worked that in the thing, right? Like
Yeah.
even just those dumb things. No, don't ever.
Yeah. What's an interesting thought I had is going back to a previous recent episode of the Cultural Hall where you guys were reviewing the movie The Heretic,
Mhm.
which I saw recently, by the way.
What did you think of
Um,
it?
Loved it.
Oh my gosh, right?
So good. So good. Lots of thoughts. But I believe it was you and Verlin were talking about the conversation at the beginning of the movie where the sisters are definitely having a conversation that you would not expect. And it just goes to show that missionaries in between lessons and everything, they are having conversations about a wide variety of things. But
Yes.
maybe that's the topic of discussion with the missionaries, like what are we doing in between lessons? What's the focus of our conversations? Is it bringing the spirit? All
Sure.
that stuff.
Well, and it's so fascinating. I heard it again on another podcast just recently talking about Heretic, and they're like, that's so not real. A sister missionary would never have that conversation. And I'm like, wrong, incorrect. Maybe they wouldn't have that exact conversation, but I can't even begin to tell you as my companion is standing in front of a fan with no clothes on, my first morning in the mission, and I had never heard of how do I delicately put this, of manscaping. I had never heard of it, and then he told me the value in both personal and other people enjoying a good manscape, and I was like, what? That was a conversation that I had. It wasn't at a bus stop, I guess, to be fair.
Or on a doorstep.
Yeah, or on a doorstep, but it was very much like, what are you? Oh, I had never considered that. All right, these are part of the conversations that missionaries would have. So
But anyway, moving on.
yeah, so Topeka, Kansas. There we go. Tell me, next story that you wanted to go to. I just threw your order out the way. Where are we going?
It's all good. We're going to number 5, I believe, right? Yep.
Yeah, yep. Oh yeah.
So this article brings up an interesting topic about why some seminary teachers are paying so much out of pocket for things like printer paper when the church has billions of dollars.
Yeah.
So the key points it brings up is the differences between, let's say, early morning seminary teachers or seminary teachers that are doing it through a calling. They come to find after accepting the calling that are surprised by the out-of-pocket expenses that are required to run their classrooms effectively.
Sure. So, did you do seminary?
I did.
Did you ever do an early morning or an outside of?
No, all mine was release time.
Okay. Well, geez, the privilege of Peru and just being able to walk across the parking lot, huh?
I know, I'm horrible.
Me too.
I should have picked to grow up in a different city.
Yeah. Parents, I'm worried about the privilege I'm experiencing. Can I please go to a? So here is an angle of view that I have thought about recently, and I'm not going to say that I think I'll get in trouble for it, because I don't think that I'll get in trouble for it. But to me, I just feel like say that I was a seminary teacher, right? And let's say for easy numbers, I make $100,000 a year, which is not what seminary teachers make. So my tithing would be 10,000. And let's say that I know that I'm spending 250 a month on my job, on my calling. I would just to be like, listen, this is part of the thing, and have that be like part of my tithing. Or I guess I would say maybe more so if it were my calling, if I was in Texas and I have to get up early, or I'm doing it after school or whatever, I would just be like, yeah, I got it. I need to get a webcam. I need to get a good whatever for the kids that aren't there. I'm having to buy printer paper, or I need to buy some markers or whatever. I wouldn't go to my bishop and say, hey, all these things cost this. I'd just be like, was going to be 10,000, spent 4,000 doing this, so I'll do 6,000 because it's all the same. Or am I missing the point?
I don't think so. I didn't necessarily think of that perspective, but I think you're tithing, and as far as, some people, your tithing is off of your gross income. Some people,
Sure.
It's your net income.
Sure.
So I think there is room for a personal assessment of those type of things. So I don't think anyone would be in the wrong for doing that, but I do think it begs the question. Now, it seems like the costs weren't that much,
Sure.
at least compared to the example you just gave. The survey findings showed that seminary teachers spend on average about $243 per school year on supplies,
Sure.
and about 40% of them reported that they had difficulty covering those costs.
Yeah.
Um, Now, where maybe it gets tricky is if you do feel like you should still give your 10% of just your income, then should they be paying out of pocket for these extra school supplies?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
The seminary buildings next to the high schools here in Utah, for those who aren't familiar, I mean, they've got everything. They've got a printer room. It's like part of the school basically,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
just
It is a very
kitty corner
separate
to it.
and different building because we have a separation of church and state. It is property that is owned by the church. There was a recent article about
Absolutely.
that was like
Absolutely.
losing their mind. But to your point, it's like a whole other school. It's a school of
Mhm.
religion. That's not what we're talking about here. But yeah, if $243, I'd be like 10,000 for the year minus 243 because I bought the paper and I wouldn't think a second thought about it. Especially if I had gone to someone and said, "Hey, Bishop, I love this calling. It's a lot of time. It costs me blank. Are you going to pay me for that?" Well, we're all taught to sacrifice. Great. 243 off the top line of 10,000. You'll be getting 9,000, 757 instead of the 10,000. And I don't
Nice,
think that's
yeah.
I don't think that's popular. I think a lot of people probably disagree with that, but I don't think at all for any reason that we should do that. And it for me has allowed me to like in the times that I'm able to help out in my ward and stuff like that. I used to like hand wring about, oh man, there's some people that need some sub for Santa stuff. That'd be great, but money's a little tight right now. I'm like, nope, subbing for Santa. Those kids need that. That's great. I'll go ahead and help that out, and I'll take that over there and be able to do that. And it allows me to see exactly where it goes. I wouldn't do the lion's share of my tithing that way, but in a lot of those things where we're just cheap, let's I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think that's popular. If that gets me excommunicated, everyone, it was nice knowing everyone. Uh,
But it does beg the question. We've talked in the past about, for example, there were at one point members who their job was to look after the facilities, right,
yes.
and take care of the cleaning and things like that. So, what, like, it does seem like in certain areas we're kind of pinching pennies where maybe we don't need to. Um, in the survey, they were also talking about how there are reimbursements available
Mhm.
to these at home or early morning seminary teachers, but often it's limited to about $50 a year,
Yeah.
and a lot of them don't even know about it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they get a little bit of flack from people in the world when they're like, "Oh, you want those $20 back, huh? Don't want
Yeah.
to sacrifice." But the calling itself is the sacrifice, I think.
Yes. Give me
Um,
all of the tools for whatever my job is, or allow me to say, hey, I would normally put this money this way. I'm going to do it differently. And then it becomes the same thing. But saying, hey, because you're this calling and you're going to do this, nope, absolutely not.
yeah.
0%.
I think,
Do not approve.
yeah, I think it's a pretty easy fix. If they just maybe standardize like a certain amount of like a budget per student for both release time and alternative seminary,
Sure.
things like that. It probably is just a question that hasn't really made its way up the ladder. Just, good Latter-day Saints have just been making the sacrifice to pay it out of pocket, but why not just, hey, let's make it a little bit easier, and then maybe we get some people into these callings who otherwise would maybe reject it if they but would accept it if they knew there wasn't going to be those costs for
Yeah.
them.
I mean, it's the other side of it for me that I think that I think that it is equally as damaging is an overstatement of words, but if you are just eating it and being like, well, I guess this is just what I do. Nope, that is not the thing that I'm saying either. I think that you go and you say, hey, bishop, or stake president, or whatever the thing is, I've got this thing and it costs this. Well, we can only do 50. All right, so would you like me to only do $50 worth of this, or how would you like me to do the other thing? Well, can you sacrifice? No, I can't. That's gonna come from somewhere, and here's where it's gonna come from. Or yes, I can. There needs to be a further conversation around it than just like, well, I guess the Lord has called me to sacrifice this little bit. and especially where we have billions of dollars. Come on. Come on.
Absolutely.
The next story that we will go to is oh yeah, the Congolese government donates to support a project of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I'm curious, this story has been in the news for a little bit, meaning other hosts have decided that they did not want to do this story for whatever reason. How come this one is significant or important to you?
Well, I think it's an important cause. I was reminded of it. Well, when I read it, it reminded me of I went and participated in the giving machines this year. And the donation that I chose to make was for nutrition kits for malnourished children. So when I saw that Congolese government was doing this donation to kind of support the church in this, I don't know, I just thought it was cool. I'm of African descent, so maybe I'm a little bit biased there, but I just love the service and everything that's going on there. And there's so much poverty and hurt on that continent as a result of the world's kind of ugly history. And so I think being able to be a part of moving that forward, and righting those wrongs and helping those people is important. The church has definitely been intensifying its efforts to combat malnourishment and things like that in the DRC, but also just all over the continent of Africa.
I think it's significant. Our guest Sean, I think it was a year ago almost, that he came in and said, "Hey, here's what's going on the continent of Africa." He has asked me to wait until the new year to reach back out to him, but he will be back and he's going to tell us about all these things. And the thing that I think is so significant, I got into a discussion about this the other day, where someone said, "Are they doing it where people have to be members of the church in order to receive this?" And that is not the case. But that is not the case both with these malnourishment situations, but it is also the case with the education, the teaching to read, and some of these other things. They're not saying "Hey, if you're Mormon, you get all these things, so doesn't it pay to be a Mormon? Come and do it." They are open hand, as I understand it, just being how can we do the most good? What do those things look like? This, helping those that are malnourished is part of it. This education is another part of it. And I'm here for every part of it, every part that we can do. And the amount that it takes to make a significant difference is mind blowing. The way that it's just oh, you're decaf, whatever, you're this, that, the other thing. You do that for a day and you sent that to Africa. It's yeah, you've just changed that kid's life.
Yeah.
With one drink, your Monster Energy drink, whatever.
Absolutely. And it's amazing that they've been able to be so efficient with the money. I was looking at some of the costs of those donations you can do with the giving machines, and it's 100 vaccinations for, I don't remember the exact cost, so I won't say it here, but it's that's 2 meals at a fast food restaurant or something. It can go vaccinate 100 children just with how they've been able to streamline those costs and everything. It's pretty awesome. And that the church is working in tandem with the government, so improving relations there, improving the relationship we have between members there and non-members. It's just all around awesome.
Well, and super cool too now that the younger men as well as women can go and serve missions. I mean, you think about these doctors that are 40, they get to be 45, maybe they're not married, they did that life, didn't do it. They go do 6-month mission in Democratic Republic of the Congo, changing lives, come back and get back to work, but they just took 6 months. It's a huge thing. This article, get ready, buckle up, everyone. This is an article from Jana Reese. This is a while back, but I've held on to it because I think that it's important. Jana Reese in the Religion News Service talks about the Public Religion Research Institute that released its annual American Values Survey. This was just in time for the 2024 election. And the Trump campaign in December of 2023 at a rally in New Hampshire said, quote, "That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just to 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world. And Jana Reese continues, this idea of undesirable people poisoning the blood of a nation dates back nearly to another populist leader back in World War II time, Adolf Hitler. So it goes into this a little bit more and talks about, I think the statistic is 1 in, I want to say
Three.
33.
That
Yeah, go ahead.
that nearly a third of U.S. Latter-day Saints agree that immigrants are poisoning the blood of the nation. Is that the stat you were talking about?
Yes.
Like the fact that that's even a question is scary.
So this, and the reason why I saved this in. So okay, a third. So I'm sitting in church with 150 people, and 50 people feel that way. Let's say, okay, you guys, Jan Reese, she blew it way out of proportion. That percentage is way up. Okay, let's say that it's half, and it wasn't her that did the research and the survey, right? Let's say that it is 16 or 17%. So 1 in 6 still in my congregation. That is 30 people who feel that way. Let's say we're up in the night, and let's say, man, that's not even, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that. Let's say that it's not that at all. Let's say that it is 10%. That's still 15 people with whom I worship would respond that way. And it made me feel gross when I first read that article. Because spoiler, that's not, it isn't that I don't have words for how terrible that is. That's not, first of all, it's not how it works. Second of all, that's a horrible thing. Third of all, that's not what Jesus was. Fourth of all, love everyone, you jerk.
Yeah. It's a very dangerous ideology, and I feel like it has been a little bit prevalent in the rhetoric. It's a hot button issue,
Sure.
immigration and everything. And I think most Americans want some sort of common sense solution to make it safer, more monitored, all that stuff.
Sure.
But it's when you get into the rhetoric that like the people coming in are the problem, not like the way they're coming in.
Sure.
That's where it's a little murky. We have rhetoric from early days that would be more pointed at someone like myself.
Sure.
That, for example, I'm half black and half white. And there's rhetoric from not only American history, but sadly within the church as well.
Yes.
About the mixing of that blood and how it's an abomination and that it requires a blood atonement. It's a slippery slope when you talk about like certain people's blood being unfavorable, poisoning the pool, when I think most of us have definitely been blessed by immigrants in our life. So
Yes.
it's interesting. I was very taken aback as well by that statistic.
Even if it's one person, like I don't want that person in my congregation. That's the thing.
Sure.
Like, let's say
You gotta love them though. You gotta love them though.
Well, I know, but it's so hard. Let me ask you, you're 26. How old are you?
27.
27. Have you ever experienced any sort of thing like that when you're dating a girl and you meet parents and parents are like, I'm not really, or have you never had that issue?
I wouldn't say anyone that I've dated has like explicitly said that.
But it's been weird, I bet.
There's been a couple maybe that
I hate that.
I think for the most part it has not been.
Okay, good.
But yeah, maybe a little bit with some friends, families, and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's so crappy.
All right.
And again, literally not a thing you can do about it. It's just other people's, but you have to deal with it. I'm so sorry. Jeez. Hey, how's it going? Taylor? I just want to.
It's all right. What was kind of interesting is what was kind of interesting is what was her name? Jana
Reese.
Jana Reese. She went on to compare it to Latter-day Saints in Germany during World War II, which I found really interesting because it really conflicts with another article that we might have time to get into that kind of shares the complete opposite view of it, where she kind of described members of the church in Germany during World War II as accommodationists, that most of them were kind of just passively like, go ahead, do your thing, Hitler, we're all good. And she called it, disgusting that missionaries were coaching the German basketball team in
Right?
preparation for the Olympics, things like that.
Yes.
So it was an interesting perspective. I think it lacks a little bit of nuance and the danger that people might have been facing if they were, um, too vocal about opposing the regime and in connection with the church, which the other article goes into a little bit more with a dossier from the Gestapo. But yeah, it was an interesting parallel that she made between those two ideologies that, in the case from the past, we saw what kind of slippery slope and what kind of extremism that can lead to.
It's a difficult thing. I don't imagine that, anything like Nazism or anything like that is permeating our wards. So that's not what I'm saying. But it is interesting how I and others will feel when something is said in church. Like not saying something, if someone says something that is like inciting or, incorrect or something like that, there is a certain amount of like, saying that that's okay if you don't say anything about it. And for a long time, please don't pick on us. We had a really hard time. We had to leave Nauvoo, and then these wagons, we had to go west, and then we had to bury our foundation. Just like us, please. We'll get rid of our wives. There was a little bit of that for a while. And then you get into some of these things. And I think that like the time of being an integritous person, not just for members of the church, but just in general, to say, this is not the way people should be treated. This is not the way we should speak about other people. Oh yeah, so you're in support of that? Not necessarily, but I need to not allow people to be, derogatory to it or, whatever the thing may be. Um, yeah, it's a difficult thing. I've stood up a few times in like Sunday school classes and stuff like that, and I've said, interesting point. Let me give you a completely opposite point of view that I hope I'm not alone in feeling. And it's scary, very
Yeah,
scary to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like in the YSA where those type of opportunities don't come up as often.
Well, sure.
For one, I think my generation were a little less likely to like a Sunday school teacher of my age is a little bit less likely to maybe make it a political
Sure.
point in during their lesson. And then, the age tends to be a little bit of a factor as far as being inclusive and progressive and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Look, we're
We're
getting
not.
in trouble for that one, but oh well.
Yeah, we're not going to get to the other article about the Nazi archives reveal the regime's disdain for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Find that link in the show notes. Let's get to we're going to skip the number 3 one, and let's go to New Zealand. Let's go to that real quick. I thought this was a cool thing. I have recently,
Number 10.
yeah, number 10. I have
All right.
recently been plagued is not the right word, but I've got some scriptures, some paper scriptures of dead real relatives that I mean, I still have a set of paper scriptures when, and it's not as often as it needs to be. I study. I like a paper scripture to be able to study in it, but I don't need like 5 sets of scriptures. The idea that like my grandma's or my grandpa's testimony could go to help someone else by me taking those used scriptures and give them to someone else. I like that. That's certainly better than it ends up in a landfill. That's what these people in New Zealand are doing, is just saying, hey, these are used, but you can take them.
Yeah, absolutely. Elder Taniela Wakolo asked church members in Auckland, New Zealand, to collect good quality sets of scriptures that they had laying around, to send to church members in Papua New Guinea in the capital city of Port Moresby. And there were just really heartwarming stories of, for example, one 14-year-old, I think his name is Wadabe Misa. He got his Book of Mormon after more than 100 youth were waiting in line, waiting reverently, it said. So I'm sure they had their arms crossed because that's what reverent means.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the only way to be reverent is
exactly.
tightly wrapping your arms in a folded position and then
Mhm.
stiff and straight up. Yep.
exactly. But after he got his copy of the Book of Mormon, he said, "I want to learn more about the gospel and how Jesus Christ sent his disciples around the world." Just a beautiful testimony from a young kid. And then another young kid said he picked up a Book of Mormon that had the large print, and he said, "I've got the biggest Book of Mormon in the world." So two very very different kids receiving scriptures there, but still both really beautiful examples. I wondered because you were talking about scriptures that maybe have things written in them, things like that. So I wondered kind of what they meant by good quality sets. Does that mean it's one that's used but it's not marked up, or does that mean it's just not falling apart? It would be
Yeah, I
kind
would
of cool though
imagine
to
good binding, that
yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah.
but it would be kind of cool to receive one that has little notes written in it from somebody from who knows how long ago. That'd be
Yeah.
really cool.
The going back to the seminary in Utah, if you leave your scriptures, because you have to buy your own scriptures for your seminary class, you leave them there. It's typically not your home set. Some people do that. I always would leave mine, so I had some for class. When you get done with school and then the school year is out, if you don't take your scriptures with you, they donate them to those that are in jail and in prison. That's what they do with the scriptures here in the state of Utah and other places where there are those actual buildings where the scriptures are at. That's how they donate those. I've heard similar stories to people who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford or have scriptures
Mhm.
are able to get those that way. So I think
I
that's
had no idea. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. I remember because our teacher always used to be like, "Listen, if you don't take them with you, we're giving them to the prisoners." I'm like, "Oh, all right, don't yell. Why are you yelling at the soldiers?" And then let's wrap it up here with the statue of a Latter-day Saint woman installed in Washington, D.C.
This was awesome. So hold on, let me pull up the name of the place that it's at.
It's Emancipation Hall in the U.S.
Yes,
Capitol Visitors Center.
yes, it is. So in Emancipation Hall, there are two statues from each state, two people from each state that kind of represent it. And a new one was added of Martha Hughes Cannon, really prominent figure in Utah history and women's history. She was a physician, a public health reformer, a suffragist, a state senator, the first one in the country, an orator, wife, and mother. She was also the only woman in her graduating class from medical school. And President Camille Johnson of the Relief Society was there for the inaugural day of the new statue being put in. And she said that she hopes that as people come to Emancipation Hall, they will feel inspired by Martha Hugh Cannon's example of service, of loving and lifting those around them, and that they'll set their sights high. She was determined, she was tenacious, and I hope that women, my daughters, my granddaughters, my great granddaughters will look at Martha and be inspired by her example.
Now, there's another side of this story that I feel like people aren't talking about because there used to be. So every state, as you indicate, has two statues, and there used to be a statue of Philo T. Farnsworth there in the Emancipation Hall. Who is Philo T. Farnsworth? Do you know who he is and what he's famous for?
I do because I Googled it
Okay.
after I read this article.
So, Philo T. Farnsworth, the inventor of the television or the technology behind the television. So here's the thing. There's some part of it because some people are like, he was born in Idaho and then moved to Utah, blah blah blah, right? Here is the thing.
And that's the reason that he was replaced?
Well, no, they
or that Idaho claims it.
Well, so Idaho sort of claims him, but he didn't like really invent the television. It was like the technology around the television. And so he's this statue. The Farnsworth family is like, yeah, way to go, great grandpa Philo, which, by the way, if we're going to keep naming our kids things like Brinley and it's Leigh, let's bring back a Philo. I would love a Philo in
Philo's cool.
Yeah. Oh,
Philo T.
Yeah.
Philo T followed by any last name is pretty cool.
Doesn't matter. Philo T. Westbrook, done.
Oof.
Philo T. Stedman, okay. Philo T. The Ash Ashton, you bet. All of the hosts would be great with a Philo T. So they take the statue. Farnsworth family's like, yeah, we're in the Emancipation Hall, and now it's at Utah Valley University in Oregon.
Just as prestigious.
Yeah. Yep.
And her statue was already here in Utah, I believe, and then was moved to Emancipation Hall.
Correct.
And the other statue that's there, for anyone wondering, is of Brigham Young.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah.
He's not from Utah either, so is
well, sure, but he. I mean, there wouldn't be Utah without that courageous man that he was,
the lion.
So I think that's sort of interesting. Martha Hughes Cannon, geez, if you don't know about her, became a state senator when she beat her husband. Not like physically beat her husband. She was running against her husband and beat him in the election. Like, that's the kind of person. She was supposed to testify against her husband for polygamy. She's like, peace out, going to Europe. I'm out. I'll come back when this is settled down. I'm a doctor. Cool. Now I'll be a senator. All right. Am I a suffragist? Yeah, all day. Let's do it. Way to go, Martha Hughes Cannon.
Very cool.
Why do you suppose, and this is just an ending, and then I have to go pick up food. My wife just messaged me. Are you still getting our dinner? Why do you suppose is she not Martha H. Cannon or M. Hughes Cannon, like the gentleman of the church? Why do we have the full name of...
or like a Philo T. Farnsworth.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm not sure. Maybe Hughes is her maiden name?
Well, I'm sure that it is, but do we include the whole thing because we want to recognize the maiden name?
I mean, maybe that's what she wanted. Maybe she made a point of it. I don't know.
Okay. Listen, I don't know. If someone knows, I would love to have that conversation. A link to all of those show notes in all of those articles in the show notes. Be sure that you find that there and consider the donation, right? You're making resolutions, result to do that in 2025. We hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
That if you're not healthy enough to listen this week, you'll be healthy enough to listen next week.
And that when the time comes, when you get done in Provo, and by Provo, I mean Peru, the Provo of South America, that you will travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger, with a U, will be saving a seat for you.
On the back row.
Of the
Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat. On the back row, we really gotta go on the Culture Hall show.